Hey, what's up, y'all? And welcome back to another episode of the Powe Up. We appreciate having y'all here as always.
Yep.
On this Sunday, y'all could be doing anything else, cleaning the house, hanging out with your family. You know what? You can still be doing all that and tuning into us. We always thank God for this platform and for, giving us the opportunity to share our experiences and, different things that we went through in life with y'all.
Yeah. And so, hey, we're ready to dive into another topic today.
Make sure y'all subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. We always appreciate it. So what we talking about today?
Today we're talking about being able to recognize your triggers and how to gain control of them. Like everybody and their mama has some type of trigger.
Yeah, I know. And if I'm being honest, somebody triggered me today. Because I was hot. You can ask her. Like, seriously, I was hot.
I tried to help.
You did. I was sitting outside Costco, y'all. I was supposed to be going in the store, and I couldn't even think right to go in the store. You know how somebody just get... I don't like when I feel like people get the best of me. You know what I mean? Like, I went to go do a job, and a guy kind of got smart with me, and he just kind of tried to belittle me, and I ain't really get the chance to feel like I got the best of him. He just kind of got me, and I didn't know how to handle that. It just kind of made me really upset.
But look at God. We talking about triggers today, right?
Right. And that's another thing. I know his supervisor. I was like, oh, you don't know who you messing with. Like, that's how I was in my head. I was like, you don't know who you messing with. I tried reaching out to the supervisor. I tried reaching out to some other people, man. Ain't nobody respond to me.
God was like, you gonna handle that on your own.
I was trying to get it off my chest, and I wasn't able to get it off my chest. And I think that's what really got me. And it's so funny that it happened today out of all days when we was going to be coming home to talk about this topic.
Crazy.
So how are we defining trigger?
So trigger, if you don't know, a trigger is anything including a memory or an experience or any type of event that may spark an intense emotional reaction where you may overreact to a situation that may be happening. So pretty much you can get tunnel vision and you can just kind of black out and you can kind of go into a sense of unconsciousness is what I want to kind of say.
Fight or flight. That's really what it is.
Yeah, because you're not really in the present moment and you kind of are going back to something that has been buried in your past.
Yeah, so like, for instance, today, me with the guy, when he got the best part of me, it was like I couldn't focus. It was like your heart start racing. You start feeling like who you start ramping up on him, and that's pretty much what a trigger is. It's something that sets you off, that makes you blank. And the dangerous part about triggers, as you all may know, when they get pulled, people get hurt.
Yes, people will always get hurt. And in the end, if you don't really think about it, you're just hurting yourself because you're not dealing with that actual trigger in that moment, and so oftentimes triggers can come from the root of it. It really can come from traumatic experiences. It can come from your own insecurities or something that may have happened in your childhood that you can't you can't really recall it, but it's there in your conscience. Like your mind and your body knows that it happened, but you may not be able to put your finger on it. And also another thing is it can kind of be passed down through different generations without you really even kind of noticing it. So those are all of the things that kind of is the root of where triggers come from. And like he said, like when you have a trigger, there are a variety of different things that just start happening. Like you kind of like caught in slow motion. But the first is like your physical starts to change, where he said like you get like,
upset. You might start sweating.
Right. You start pacing, or you start like, your mind is just going 100 miles per hour because you about to lose control.
Right. And I think it's important when she talk about the root of the trigger, it's really important for us to figure out first what our triggers are. Like, you have to think back of times when you got upset the most, or when somebody got you out of your element. And 9 times out of 10, that was because of a trigger. So you have to really think back and be like, what was it that got me upset? What did they do? And once you figure out what that what is, then you go to the why.
Right.
Why did it happen? Why did I get upset so much? Was it something in my childhood? Did somebody talk to me a certain type of way in the past that I didn't like? Did somebody embarrass me? Where you don't want, nobody likes that feeling of being embarrassed. So, one of your triggers might be you don't like when somebody calls you out, because when they call you out, it reminds you of a time when somebody called you out when you were younger, and it embarrassed you. So you have to really identify those things to be able to start to control and gain control over your triggers.
Right. And so you need to be able to, once you identify the what and the why, you have to really dig deep. And that's a problem for a lot of people. I mean, I know for me, I would think, like, if I was to get upset and like, oh my goodness, why am I getting so upset in the moment? It forces you to kind of like take a step back to like, what is really going on with me? And that's hard for a lot of people to do. We'll say, I'm just upset, but you're not. Why are you upset? Oftentimes, more than likely, people aren't able to really answer that. But when you start to experience a trigger, you need to learn how to separate the present from the past, because what has happened in your past doesn't mean that the same thing is happening in your present. But when you experience triggers, you can't really think clearly. You're not unless you train yourself to do that.
And like she said, with, being in the past, that's what it does. It puts you in the past of something that a traumatic experience, or it doesn't even always have to be traumatic. It could just be something you didn't like that happened to you in the past. And what happens sometimes is something that might not even be that serious, or that person might not even be coming off a certain type of way. You automatically react to it based off of what happened to you in the past.
For instance, I know that like if somebody does something to me, I sometimes I still will do this. I'll take what they've done if I didn't react how I wanted to react in that moment, and I just like, I'll sit and I'll get in the shower or whatever, and I'm just thinking about like all the things I could have said or I could have did in that moment, and I'm just pissed off with myself for not being able to like, kind of take up for myself the way I wanted to initially. And that, when you experience a trigger, it often kind of takes you back to like a time where you may have felt more or less powerful in a situation and that type of thing. And so I know that when I do go through those experiences, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to get this person back that next time, or anybody else who does something to me, I'm going to get them back. And so like, that's kind of like a trigger in a sense.
Yeah, it becomes a vicious cycle, and it's a cycle that's hard to break sometimes, and that's why I say when triggers get pulled, people get hurt, because one thing that happens is, let's say I pull the trigger on you and I'm the person that you feel like I got the best of you, and then I can go away saying, yeah, it ain't who they thought I was or
Right,
whatever.
it's like a counter thing. You're going to keep going back and forth.
And then you're going to find a way, eventually, most likely, to get that person back. And then it just never stops. And honestly, for me, I take that very seriously, because I grew up in Baltimore, and a lot of young guys have lost their life because of that vicious cycle of, you got me, I got to get you back, or you harm mine, I got to harm you back. And I feel like until we get a grasp on our emotions and learn how to be able to have conversations and talk things out, people are going to continue to get hurt. We're going to continue to hurt our own people, because a lot of times you don't hurt others, you hurt your own.
To get to that point of being mature where it's kind of, if I see that he's being triggered by something, he's upset. For instance, okay, me, if I'm walking around the house and I'm just upset or whatever, he comes home from work and he's in a good mood and feeling good, and then my mood is just not like that. It's not matched. And he comes in and he doesn't know how to take it, and he can get triggered off of me. Like, what's the problem? Like, what's wrong with you? Instead of sitting back and taking the time to say, okay, well, maybe she has experienced something throughout her day that has her feeling down. How can I be of assistance to her to help to pull her out? Or even if you're not the type of person who can pull someone out of it, hey, I'm just going to let this person breathe a little bit and then I can kind of come back to it, you know?
A lot of times, too, what happens is based on something that she went through today that triggered her, you may not notice it, but you'll take it out on the next person as well. So that's another thing to be conscious of, the fact that you don't just hurt the person that you might have pulled the trigger on, or they pulled the trigger on you. You can hurt yourself, you can hurt others, and you can hurt the initial person that you got into it with, or whoever made you feel some type of way.
So we had to take a little break because we got a little baby here that, wants me to hold him. He has that little change. He just turned 3 months.
3 months yesterday. So welcome to the show, Justice.
So, well, that takes me back to a thought that I wanted to speak on, which is like it's called kind of like counter triggering. So, for instance, if I'm in the house and I'm upset and I'm just, something's on my mind, and my husband comes in the house and he's, all excited. He had a great and amazing day. And then when he sees me, it kind of just triggers him because it's like, okay, well, I'm feeling good. What's going on with you? You know what I mean? And then some people aren't able to handle that, and instead of him being mature, not saying that he's done this, but in instance, if you're not mature enough, sometimes that can just be like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this. But instead, you should be asking yourself like, okay, well, maybe that person had a rough day, or maybe like if you're not into that to help to bring that person out, then maybe you can just, say, all right, I'm going to give you 2 hours, your time to kind of breathe through this and get through it on your own and just kind of step away and then come back to it.
Yeah, I think I had to learn that with Krishon, because she's the type of person that I'm the problem solver. So, like, the minute conflict happens, I do not like conflict. I like to try and solve it right then and there. My wife is not so much that type of person. I'm not saying that she don't want to solve it, but when she already in a mood or feeling some type of way, sometimes it's best to just give her time to think on it, because she don't want to come off and say something that she don't mean.
Or just be just impulsive. Because there was a time that I was like that, where I would just blow up. Like, I would just turn mad, And I learned that, okay, it's better for me just to just be silent. Just take my thoughts and just take some time to talk about it. There have been many of times where it's like, I know he like, I want to talk about it now though, but I'm like, listen, I don't want to say nothing to hurt your feelings. I don't want to say nothing that I regret. And so I know me, and that's something that, I had to learn. That wasn't just, off rip. That was just like, okay, I've hurt many of people by just saying stuff, and just, I've hurt myself and, a whole bunch of stuff. And I didn't want to go that route anymore. And so I had to learn like that's what works for me.
Right. And me, like I said, I had to learn how to give like her space to be able to, handle things the way she handled it. I know it's 2 different times. Like, you have trigger times where you might not know the person. So, of course, you're going to react how you react, but you can only control yourself. Remember that. But basically, with me knowing my wife, I know certain things that trigger her. I know how she deals with things. So I think on my part, it would be immature of me to try to keep nagging at a wound or something, or trying to come at her at a time when I know she might be upset and she just need a little time to wind down. So, I would say take advantage of knowing the person as well. And if you know the person, then, make it easier on each other, because we're all human beings at the end of the day. It is hard to control our emotions.
Yes.
I mean, we still have that inner child within us. They say the inner child never leaves you. And Lord knows our 1-year-old right now does not know how to control his emotions.
Oh, my goodness. He will go off. When I say he will go off, and it's funny. I think about this. Funny story was when my parents, they'll FaceTime and they'll see Jackson and, hee ha ha. And one time it was me and my dad in the living room, and when they came to visit, and he was pulling on the blinds. Like, and Jackson's the type, like, he gonna just do what he want to do. That's how
Yep.
he feels. He don't want nobody telling him nothing. And so my dad, I kept telling him, like, don't mess with the blinds, but of course he wasn't listening to me. And then my dad, somebody that he's not extremely used to being in the house, told him, don't mess with the blinds. And it was crazy because he just stayed and looked at him like, you telling me something like that? And then he went berserk. He grabbed the blinds. I mean, he was yanking them all over. That triggered him because he don't like nobody telling him what to do. And he knew that my dad was in, he could sense that it was a man telling him, like, no, and so he just lost it. And so his little butt gets triggered a lot.
So let me ask you this. Do you feel like some of the triggers we have, do you feel like we're born with them? You feel like they are like really genetically passed down, where it's just like because our ancestors had problems with this, we just automatically have those issues? Or do you still feel like it's a learned thing? Like,
I think that, it could be a little bit of both.
Right.
What's in you or what's, in your genes or whatever, some of that stuff can just be passed down.
And the reason why I ask that is because it's easy to think that all triggers can come from a traumatic experience, and all of them don't come traumatic. Some of them are just human nature. Some things we're just, I feel like, born with, and that we have to work on daily within ourselves.
Right. And a lot of times, like, for instance, sometimes people, for instance, personalities, right? So if somebody is a introvert, I'm saying this because all triggers, the underlying issue kind of roots from some type of fear or anxiety. So if I'm an introvert and I instantly just always go to the back of the room when I walk into a classroom or something, and everyone up front is all engaged, and someone asks me and comes over to me and say, hey, come to the front. And then I initially just say, no. Like, and then they kind of challenge me on that, and they're like, okay, well, why not? And if they ask me that question and I get defensive and, some negative thought has come to my brain, or I'm fearful to go up and speak in front of people, then that's pretty much a trigger. But it's not a trigger if they challenge me and I'm just like, no, and I don't have a negative thought about it, and that's just who I am. I don't want to be in the front. I don't want to engage, or I don't want to talk. So, those two things can be like, there can be like a thin line between those two. But if a negative thought and you having that inner talk with yourself and it's negative, then that's kind of like a trigger happening to you.
Yeah, and you have to be careful as well, because with triggers come overreactions. We can overreact to situations based off on how we perceive the situation. Like, for instance, let's say I was coming home from work and Krishon spent all day cleaning the kitchen, making dinner and doing all these things, trying to, do the right thing and be a good wife and surprise me when I get home with dinner. And the first thing I come in and do and just say, what's up? And walk back to the bathroom, come out, sit down, turn on the game, start playing the game. She could take that as, well, dang, he didn't even acknowledge all this hard work I did. And then she can start getting frustrated and angry over that.
That's true.
And that can be an overreaction. It's not that I didn't appreciate it. It's just maybe I didn't notice it. Maybe I came in and I had a hard day and I was just like, man, I just need
to relax.
I need to relax for a second. So that's why I say perception is everything, how you perceive things.
So, we've already talked about kind of pretty much how, you can identify if you're having a trigger. The physical changes, you start sweating, you just, pacing, you just, you feel it in there in your stomach. And then another thing is that negative talk is just going off in your mind. Like, the lies are going off in your brain, and you kind of just like pull back to a place in the past. And then another thing is that you become the victim. And the other person that you're experiencing the trigger with becomes the prosecutor, which that's of course, you're not being able to see clearly, where you start feeling like, okay, they're attacking me, or for instance, if somebody, if I text my husband and he don't text me back right immediately, like in 5 minutes, or if I say something like, I love you, then if he don't text me back and I see an hour has gone by and I'm kind of like, okay, you not texting me back. Maybe he don't love me, maybe he don't want to say he loved me. That's not his problem. That's my problem, because I'm dealing with something and that's my wound. So that's the problem of me maybe being, not feeling loved enough, or me maybe being able to feel like abandoned or something like that. And so the other person, oftentimes it's just easier for, if you get upset or you get in the moment, for you to put the blame on somebody else. But that's not their responsibility. You have to be able to do the why and the what of why you're feeling that way. It's not that person's responsibility, but it is easier for you just to, just because you're upset, you don't want to lose power. And we try to get like really tough when we, it's like you feel like you the victim,
weak.
you feel weak, and you don't want to just be vulnerable and to say, hey, like, I didn't really like that you didn't acknowledge my text message and tell me that you love me, because I sent that and, I was looking for a reaction or something like that. You know what I mean? Not for instance, but just, you didn't get the reaction that you wanted in that moment. And a lot of people don't like to do that at all. I know sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm being very vulnerable at this point and I done put myself out there and I'm not getting what I need,
Yeah, and just know that it's okay to be vulnerable. Sometimes we take that as weakness, and it's not weakness.
It's actually strength.
Yeah, being vulnerable is strength, because you're opening up, saying, "Hey, I before I feel some type of way, let me just ask them, or let me see." Because maybe at that moment he was just busy. He had a busy day, and I can say, before I even get upset, just say, "Hey, so I'm assuming you having a busy day, right?" Or or you don't even have to say it like that. Just say, "Oh, you having a busy day? I know I texted you earlier, but." I figured you was just having a busy, and then that person, that you give them the floor to be able to respond, and you're not assuming that, oh, well, they just ignoring my text or whatever.
Right.
So remember that you can always gain control or have control over your triggers. No, I know that unpleasant situations can provoke strong reactions out of anybody. But when you learn how to manage your triggers effectively, it'll stop you from overreacting to a situation. So that's why we came up with some acronyms. We took a lot of time out and really thought this out for you guys for the word trigger. So T stands for train yourself, and then R to relax. TR, train to yourself to relax. Because the first thing you want to do whenever you're in a unpleasant situation,
put your guard up.
is put your guard up.
On a fight, you ready to go.
You ready to go, you sweating, or you retreating, or you don't know how to handle it, so you going into your shell. So make sure you always train yourself to relax. Once you relax and take a couple deep breaths and realize that it's not that serious most of the time, then identify what it is that's getting you upset.
Right. That's when the what and the why comes into place. Why is that getting you upset?
Right. So we got TRI. Train yourself to relax. Then I is for identify. And then next is GGE. Get a grip on your emotions.
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think that is the hardest one. I'm still learning till today, because we can just lose it sometimes. When it comes to our emotions, a lot of people don't have that control over their emotions. They like to feel like they do, but that's a hard thing
like
to do.
Some people wear their emotions on a sleeve, and they don't know how to handle emotions. Emotions, I feel like, it's just human nature. So it's just something that a lot of us, it takes time to learn how to get in check.
And sometimes, some people might be very blunt with their emotions, but don't forget that there are people who are very subtle with theirs too, where it's like, okay, I might not say nothing, but I peep what's going on. You
Right.
know what I mean? So you got to get a grip on that too. And I think it's harder to get a grip on those ones because you do it so silently, where people don't really know that you're reacting. So they think, oh, she's just cool, calm, and collect, but they don't know that you plotting in the back of your head what's going to happen next, you know?
Right. Devious stuff.
Yes, devious stuff.
So, like I said, I'm going to go over them again. T is train yourself. R, to relax. Then I is identify what's going on. What's the root of the cause of why you're getting upset. Then GGE is get a grip on your emotions. Once you get a grip on your emotions, then react.
And a lot of times we often do the opposite. We react first.
Yeah.
And then you think about all the stuff afterwards, and then you're like, oh, I apologize, or oh my gosh, it got out of control.
Right. And all it takes is you taking a deep breath and thinking about those things first before reacting. Honestly, reacting the right way can save a life, number one.
Yeah.
It can save
a relationship,
friendships. It can save family. Families break up over stuff like that, over how somebody came off or how they made them feel. People, what do they say? People might not always remember what you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So if you insulted somebody, at that point, they will remember what you say, and they're going to remember how it made them feel.
Right. But when you say, okay, when you talk about the way somebody makes you feel, okay, yes, what that person may have done was wrong, or they may have disrespected you, or, they may have hurt your feelings. But at the end of the day, it's your problem to solve. Like, because you're the one who felt the hurt. You know what I mean? So just deal with that, because 9 times out of 10, somebody else gonna do the same thing to you.
Don't allow somebody to have that power over you. You always have the power over your own thoughts and your emotions. Just try your best to get it in check. And I know that's a daily challenge for a lot of people, even for me, especially for somebody. Working in the field. I'm dealing with the public, so I have to deal with all different types of personalities and have to be able to accept people for who they are.
And then come home to me.
Right, and come home with good energy to my wife. So I'm just saying, make sure that you always keeping yourself in check. And keeping your triggers on safety, because like I said, when you pull those triggers, people always get hurt.
Always. So just take the time and acknowledge yourself, like what is really going on. And then you can acknowledge it, or, bring it up to the other person. And then when you do that, then you'll be able to say, okay, is this worth repairing, or can we work through this? And if you can, and if you can't do it in the moment, then just kind of step away and, gather your thoughts and get yourself together. But don't just blow up, on spot.
Right. When you blow up on spot, bad things tend to happen.
Yes, because I know, because I've done it many of times.
And me too. So, I guess that's all we really got for y'all today, man. We thought it was very important to come in and talk a little bit about triggers, because I know that's a daily thing that people deal with on their jobs and everywhere in life. You're going to always have to deal with that as long as you're living and breathing. Somebody's going to always come at you the wrong way.
Always. Yes, that's just the life, especially if that's your trigger. It's going to happen to you more times than not, It's just going to keep happening to you until you manage and get that self-control and kind of deal with that deep-rooted wound.
And know that it's okay to reach out for help as well. I feel like talking heals people.
Yes, vent, go to a therapist. Therapy is good for the soul, okay?
Yeah, if you don't have somebody that you feel comfortable talking to, try therapy. If therapy doesn't work, try exercising. Anything that just can get those feelings off of you to clear your mind of all the fog of the day.
Right. And so, hey, that's it.
That's all we got for y'all today.
That's our spiel.
We appreciate y'all joining us as always. Coming to get y'all Sunday sip.
Let us know what some of the things that trigger you, and if you've worked through them or something that you're still working on. Because 9 times out of 10, somebody else feels the same exact way that you feel.
Right, and know that we here working on ourselves as well. Like I said today, I had somebody that really triggered me, and I felt like they got the best of me. But you know what? They didn't get the best of me. People only get the best of you when you let them get the best of you. Remember that.
That's very true. And on that note, we'll see y'all next week.
See you next week.
Peace.